What if Darth Maul trained Anakin? In The Phantom Menace, we saw the Duel of the Fates and how Maul killed Qui-Gon but was eventually sliced in half by Obi-Wan Kenobi. From there, Obi-Wan took it upon himself to train Anakin. Meanwhile, Maul was forced to spend the next decade in hiding until he eventually revealed himself once again. But what if things were different? What if Maul was the one to train Anakin instead of Obi-Wan? Well, in this alternate timeline, that's exactly what we'll be diving into, so let's get right into it. Our story begins towards the end of the nail-biting duel on Naboo. Just seconds ago, Maul had killed Qui-Gon Jinn, and as Obi-Wan stood there furious after what he just witnessed, he waited for the gates to open so he could avenge his master's death. Eventually, Obi-Wan was in luck, and as the gates opened, Maul and Obi-Wan went head-to-head with their sabers clashing back and forth. As the battle raged on, the tide turned in Maul's favor, and he was able to force push Obi-Wan into the reactor shaft. Luckily though, Obi-Wan was able to just save himself by grabbing onto the ledge. However, this is where our story is different from the original. As Maul slashed his lightsaber back and forth, Obi-Wan then closed his eyes and meditated through the Force. Then he force-pulled Qui-Gon's lightsaber, and as he leaped in the air, Maul quickly reacted. Out of nowhere, Maul had sliced Obi-Wan with his lightsaber as he did his flip, cutting the Jedi Padawan in half. As Obi-Wan's body fell to the ground, Maul then flicked his hand and used the Force to push both halves of his body down the reactor shaft. From there, he then watched his body disappear down the shaft, and as he did, he started laughing. He really had done it. Both Jedi were now defeated, and the Sith had now successfully taken their first step towards one day controlling the galaxy. However, Maul's thoughts began to race. Although he felt a thrill from killing these two Jedi, he didn't want to stop there. If he could defeat these two with these, then what was stopping him now? He realized that he wanted to keep going. He craved more power, and by that he even thought to himself that maybe he was even strong enough to overthrow his own master, Darth Sidious. However, before he could keep thinking about this, he heard a voice, almost as if it was an injured voice that was struggling to breathe. Maul looked over. It was Qui-Gon, still gasping for his final breaths. As Maul then walked over to Qui-Gon's body, he went down on one knee and said,
"You fought well, Jedi. Unfortunately, history will not see it that way, though."
Qui-Gon moaned in pain. Although he was seconds away from dying, he only had one thing and one thing on his mind only: Anakin. He had no idea what would become of him now, and all he could do was be worried for his future. Struggling to keep his eyes open, he then looked up at Maul, who was standing above him. Then he watched as the Sith Lord ignited his crimson red saber.
"Any last words, Jedi?"
Qui-Gon went silent. He closed his eyes. Before he knew it, Maul then used both hands and slashed his saber right through Qui-Gon's chest. It was over. Qui-Gon Jinn was dead. As Maul retracted his lightsaber, he pulled out his comlink and was about to report back to his master. But then he froze. For some strange reason, he felt a tremor in the Force, something that was nearby him, something powerful. Although he couldn't detect what it was, this tremor felt awfully familiar, as he felt it earlier when he was on the desert planet of Tatooine. What was this, he thought to himself, and why was it feeling even stronger than before? He wanted answers, so he quickly made his way to the main hangar, hoping to learn what this was. As he got there, all of a sudden, he saw a lone yellow N1 starfighter arrive in the palace. However, to remain undetected, Maul quickly hid behind the pillars and watched as the ship landed. The tremor he was feeling was now beyond stronger than he ever felt. Whatever it was, it must be in that ship. Then he saw a blonde boy walk out of the ship along with an R2 series droid. As he watched, he overheard the two speak and that the droid was gonna go look off for others while the boy was gonna go look for his two Jedi friends. Maul couldn't help but laugh inside. That foolish, ignorant boy had no idea that the Jedi he was looking for were both dead. As the boy kept walking closer and closer towards where Maul was hiding, the droid was no longer in sight and it was only the boy, all by himself. Then as the boy drew close, Maul then left his hiding spot and then stood right in front of him. As he looked at the boy right in his eyes, it finally hit him. Up until now, he had no idea what was so powerful with this kid, but now he understood. This was the boy that Sidious had spoken so much about, the one who was gifted in the Force beyond measure. Although Maul didn't know his name, he heard rumors that this boy was conceived by the Force itself. As the boy stood there, he went pale and started to shake.
No. No need to be afraid.
Where's Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan?
Your two Jedi friends. They're dead.
The boy went numb. A tear ran down his cheek.
Be grateful for their loss. What does it say about them that the two of them together couldn't defeat one lone warrior? Are those really the type of masters you want training you in the ways of the Force?
The boy went silent.
What is your name, boy?
Anakin Skywalker, sir.
Anakin was still shaking. He felt cold inside.
I offer you a choice, Skywalker. Join me, and together we will free your mother that you desperately miss, and I will help you get revenge on all of those who have brought you into that wretched life of slavery.
Anakin went silent again.
My boy, you deserve much more than a Jedi's life. They don't understand real power, and from what you saw, they weren't even strong enough to protect you. With my training, I will give you everything that you seek and more. I will give you the life that you deserve, and together we will free your mother.
Anakin was still shaking. He couldn't join him. He wanted to be with the Jedi. It was his dream ever since.
My boy, I know what it's like losing your mother. I, just like you, was ripped from my mother's arms at a similar age, without a choice. But now, I am giving you a choice. An opportunity to save her and a chance to show you power beyond what the Jedi could ever teach you. Join me, Skywalker. Allow me to complete your training, and together we will bring peace, freedom, and justice to this galaxy. But refuse, and you shall suffer the same fate as your Jedi friends.
Fear ran through every inch of Anakin's body. He knew he was trapped. There was nowhere to go. Left with no choice, Anakin then nodded his head. He accepted. 10 years had passed, and after the events of what happened on Naboo, Sidious still never sensed Maul's death. However, because he never heard of his existence since, he continued on and replaced him with Count Dooku, who would now be his new apprentice. Meanwhile, Yoda and the rest of the council reported that both Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi died on Naboo and were defeated by the mysterious Sith Lord they encountered there. To honor Qui-Gon, he was presented with his own funeral, but unfortunately the Jedi still never found the bodies of Obi-Wan Kenobi or Anakin Skywalker. Despite R2-D2 reporting that he arrived back with Anakin on Naboo, there was no proof of Anakin's survival. So the council agreed that it was best to report that he was dead along with the two Jedi. However, little did the council know, Anakin was very much alive. Not only that, but he was only becoming stronger each day as he trained relentlessly with his new master out on the planet of Dathomir. Over this past decade, Anakin's skills had become a lot stronger in the dark side, and his power was beyond what he would have ever been if he stayed as a Jedi. Although he was still young and had a lot left to learn, he was only growing more and more powerful and was slowly perfecting his skills in the dark side of the Force. However, one late night, Anakin started to have nightmares. Although he couldn't see what was happening in them, all he knew was that his mother was in danger and that she was screaming for help. For this past decade, Maul promised him that they'd return back to Tatooine together to save her, but had to wait for the right time. This always frustrated Anakin because he never understood why they couldn't just rescue her right away. According to Maul though, Anakin's training was still not complete to face such a challenge yet. However, with these nightmares, Anakin had enough. So he then stood up and walked over to his master, who was sitting there meditating.
Yes.
My mother. She's in trouble.
Maul went silent.
What else do you want from me? It's your fault she's still on that planet. You promised me we'd save her.
Yes, and do you remember what I told you all those years ago?
Enough! You're no better than the Jedi. She's in trouble and she needs me more than ever. I sensed it. So this is funny to you.
Maul turned around.
Skywalker, 10 years ago I made a promise to you that you'd save your mother, and I would ensure that, did I not?
Anakin went silent.
You were never ready to face the horrors of what you will witness when you visit your homeworld of Tatooine. However, now you are proving to me that you are ready. You have rage. You have anger. And you are now taking a step closer to the dark side. Go, my apprentice. Go to Tatooine and save your mother. Get your revenge on anybody who is responsible for your mother's pain, and most of all, leave no survivors.
Are you coming with me?
No. This journey is but yours alone.
Anakin nodded and then started to set off, but then Maul stopped him.
Remember, Skywalker, many think that you are still dead. Keep it that way. If anybody learns that you are still alive, kill them without hesitation. Our presence must remain hidden until the time is right.
Anakin understood, and with that, he then set off for his home planet of Tatooine. When he arrived, the first place he visited was Watto's workshop. The last time he saw his mother, she was still a slave to Watto, so with that, he believed that's where he'd find her. As he then came face to face with his old slave master, Anakin wasted no time and demanded to know where Shmi Skywalker was. Since Anakin had a black hood on, Watto didn't recognize who he was at first, but once he said the name Shmi Skywalker, then it hit him.
Annie? Annie?
As Anakin raised his head, his scorching yellow and red eyes looked directly at Watto.
It is you, Annie. Wow, you've sprouted. Your eyes, Annie. Is that some sort of Jedi trick?
Anakin snarled.
Where is my mother?
Watto took a step back. Although he didn't want to admit it, he was terrified of the boy he once owned.
Shmi, she's not mine no more. I sold her. You sold her? To who? Years ago, you know, business can be business. I sold it to a moisture farmer named, Lars. At least I think it was Lars. Believe it or not,
Anakin had enough, so he then ignited his crimson red saber and pointed it right at Watto's throat.
Take me to her. Now. Yeah, sure. Come with me. We can look at my records.
Anakin then retracted his saber. From there, the two went into Watto's workshop, and eventually he was able to find where Cliegg Lars was located. However, as Watto was pulling up the files, Anakin remembered what Maul said to him, and that was to leave no survivors, especially if they recognized who he was. So, as soon as Watto told Anakin where the Lars family was located, Anakin then force-pulled him right to him. As he clenched his fist, he then ignited his saber with his other hand and stabbed it right through Watto's chest. Remembering all the pain that Watto inflicted on him and his mother for so many years, killing him felt so thrilling. Eventually, Anakin released him and Watto's body flopped to the ground. As Anakin stood above his dead body, he took one last hard look at him and said,
"Thank you for your service, my old master."
From there, Anakin then set off for the Lars homestead. As he arrived, he then saw his old droid C-3PO standing on the outside of the homestead. However, just like earlier, because Anakin was wearing a hood, 3PO didn't recognize who was under the black robes. As 3PO then approached Anakin, he said,
"Why, hello there. I am C-3...
Shut it, droid."
Anakin felt not one bit of emotion towards his former droid. As Anakin then walked into the homestead, he came face to face with three individuals, a young couple and a man who was in a wheelchair. As the man in the wheelchair looked up at Anakin, he said,
"Can we help you, sir? Why are you in our home?"
You must be Cliegg Lars. Where's my mother?
Oh, son. My apologies. You must be Anakin. She raved so much about you, you know. Come, let's sit down. We have a lot to talk about.
Enough. Tell me where she is.
By the end, Anakin got his answers, and just like Watto's fate, he left no survivors. Cliegg, Owen, and Beru Lars were all dead, and the only one who was left untouched was C-3PO. Since 3PO never recognized Anakin, Anakin felt that there was no reason for him to kill his old droid. And plus, who knows, maybe he'll return someday and have further use for him. However, that didn't matter now. The only thing that mattered was finding his mother. As Anakin then set off, he started getting more and more intel from different locations until eventually he found the Tusken Raider camp where his mother was located. Unfortunately, when he arrived, he was too late. As he entered one of the Tusken huts, his mother was already laying there dead, right before his eyes. Once he saw this, Anakin's body began to swell up. He's never felt rage more than he ever felt at this moment. He blamed one person and one person only for this: Maul. If his master hadn't held him back for so many years, he could have saved his mother and they could have been together right now. But because of him, she was dead. Anakin had enough. His eyes then scorched with yellow and red until to release his anger, he then pulled out his lightsaber and started slaughtering every Tusken in the camp. Anakin then killed everyone in sight, but not just the men, but the women and the children too. Not one Tusken Raider survived that night. They were all dead by the hands of Anakin Skywalker. After massacring the camp, Anakin flew back to the planet of Dathomir, where he then confronted his master once again. When he arrived, he stormed towards Maul and yelled,
"You! This is all your..."
Now, is that any way to treat your master?
Maul then released Anakin and dropped him to the ground.
"She's dead. You held me back. You never let me go to see her."
Yes. And do you know why? I kept an eye on your mother, Skywalker. Months after you became my apprentice, she was freed by that man, Cliegg Lars. From there, she married him. And after losing you, that man filled the gap she needed in her life. If you rescued her, she would have only interrupted your training, and you would have never reached the power that you have now, the power you need for our next goal.
What goal?
The only goal. There's a reason why I recruited you to become my apprentice 10 years ago, Skywalker. Soon, the Clone Wars will begin, and chaos will spread throughout the galaxy, and once it is finished, you and I will thrive in that chaos. My old master, Darth Sidious, will control both sides of the war until the end. Once it is over, that is when you and I will confront him ourselves and take what is ours. We will form our own empire, and the galaxy will be ours. The power you've always craved will be yours, and everything it is you ever wanted will be in your hands.
All I wanted was to free my mother, and now that's taken from me.
Her death was a necessary loss. You have only become powerful as a result of it, and by the time the Clone Wars are over, your power will be beyond measure. Were there any survivors?
No. I killed them all. The women. And the children, too.
Good. Very good. Now, my apprentice, let us do what we've done the past 10 years and continue to prepare ourselves in hiding. Soon, very soon, this galaxy will be ours, and together we will defeat Darth Sidious and take our prize.
Anakin nodded his head. Although he missed his mother, he'd do what he'd just done on Tatooine and get his revenge on anybody who was responsible for this. This time though, it would be against his own master. Regardless of what Maul said, Anakin blamed him for her death, and when the time was right, he would betray his master and take this galaxy for himself. However, now wasn't that time. He knew he wasn't strong enough to defeat him, but one day he will be, and one day he will overthrow him.
Execute Order 66.
Apprentice, have you felt it? Have you felt the screams, the cries of agony, the chaos that dominates this galaxy right now?
I have, my master.
Good. Then we are ready. It is now time for us to reveal ourselves.
Anakin nodded.
We leave for Coruscant immediately.
As Maul and Anakin then set off for the planet of Coruscant, it was now time for them to thrive in the chaos that had just occurred. Although they weren't sure what exactly was going on, they knew the tide of the galaxy was shifting, and it was their chance to seize this opportunity. As they arrived, the first thing they noticed was the Jedi Temple engulfed in flames. So without hesitation, they set course for the temple first. Once they landed, they then exited the ship, and as they approached the front entrance with their hooded robes, 2 clone troopers stood right in front of them.
I'm sorry, sir, but you are not permitted to enter. The temple is currently off limits until further notice.
I relieve you of your duty, trooper.
Maul then lifted both troopers in the air and then crushed their necks with the Force. As their necks cracked, he then dropped their bodies to the ground. They were both dead. As the 2 then entered the temple, they looked around to see what was going on, but for some strange reason, it was quiet. Too quiet. Despite the temple being in flames from the outside, the inside of this place was just pure silence. It was almost as if the chaos that occurred here was already finished. As they then walked through the halls, they started looking around, and as they did, they saw dead Jedi bodies everywhere. But not just Jedi Masters. By the looks of it, many of them were young, including Padawans and younglings. However, then out of nowhere, they saw something unexpected, a glow of red light in the distance. Although they weren't sure what it was, it looked as if it was a red lightsaber of some sort. So the 2 then walked closer to the red light, and as they approached it, they were correct. In front of them stood a shadowy figure holding a red lightsaber.
Darth Maul, I've heard so much about you.
And who is this pretender?
The shadowy figure stepped forward. It was Count Dooku.
Young fool, I am the one who took your place after you were rumored to be dead back on Naboo.
My master must have been very desperate to go for an old man such as you to be his new apprentice.
Unfortunately, you are too late. My master and I have already defeated 4 Jedi Masters just ourselves. And as we speak, the Jedi Order is collapsing by the minute. You must know by now that there can only be 2 Sith at a time, and unfortunately, those roles are already filled.
You clearly don't know your master well, do you? Just like me, he will aim to replace you as well, old man. You should know by now that treachery is the way of the Sith. However, allow me to do you a service. My apprentice and I will relieve you of your duty and replace both you and your master.
Troopers?
Out of nowhere, close to 100 troopers in blue and white armor appeared from the shadows and then surrounded both Anakin and Maul.
I consider you to rethink your actions. This is not a battle you'll win.
Maul ignited his double-bladed lightsaber. Anakin ignited his. However, then another voice appeared.
Enough.
It was Darth Sidious.
Troopers, stand down.
Most of the clones then started to lower their blasters, but one trooper kept his pointed.
But sir, aren't these Jedi? They're trained.
I said enough.
Out of nowhere, Palpatine did the unthinkable and let out a chain of Force lightning towards each and every clone trooper that stood there. Every clone screamed in agony, and as the lightning electrocuted all of them, every one of their bodies dropped to the ground. They were all dead. As Anakin stood there stunned, he was shocked at what he just witnessed. He had no idea such power existed, and in a way, he was amazed by this Sidious person. He thought to himself, has his own master been limiting his training? Why is it that he never taught him any of these abilities?
I see you have survived your fight on Naboo, my old apprentice. I am impressed that you have been able to remain hidden for so long. But even more than that, taken it upon yourself to train the Chosen One behind my back. It is unfortunate. His training has been so restricted for so long, considering that you are no longer even a Sith.
I have always been a Sith, and my apprentice and I have become stronger than you could ever imagine, Sidious.
Is that so? And you must have forgotten your earliest teachings, my former apprentice. Just as Lord Tyrannus said, there can only be 2 Sith at a time, and you have been replaced.
Sidious then ignited his 2 crimson red blades. Dooku also ignited his. Then out of nowhere, Sidious leaped towards Maul, and the duel between them, Dooku and Anakin, began. A battle for the future of the galaxy unfolded in the Jedi Temple with red blades slashing at one another in every direction. As the four clash lightsabers, Maul was up against Sidious and Dooku was fighting off against Anakin. Over these past 3 years, Anakin's skills had grown tenfold, and even earlier in the fight, Dooku was just no match for the Chosen One. Every one of Anakin's strikes kept overwhelming Dooku, and with how quick and agile he was, Dooku couldn't keep up. Eventually, Anakin was able to get an edge over him, and out of nowhere, he was able to undercut Dooku's hands and slice them right off. As Dooku's red saber flew in the air, Anakin then caught it and crossed both his and Dooku's saber right along his neck. As Anakin then looked at Dooku, he still heard Maul and Sidious flashing their sabers in the back. However, Anakin ignored their fight and focused strictly on Dooku. As Dooku looked up at Anakin, he was struck with fear. He looked terrified. For so long, he saw himself ruling side by side with Sidious, just to now be defeated by a younger dark side user within just minutes. Then, Anakin placed the two sabers closer to his neck.
Die well, old man.
Anakin then sliced the two sabers along Dooku's neck, and his head then dropped to the ground. Count Dooku was dead. As Anakin turned around, he went in to jump back into the fight to help his master, but it was too late. Before he knew it, Palpatine had disarmed Maul and struck him with Force lightning as he laid there on the ground. As Maul begged for mercy, Palpatine started cackling. Anakin was stunned by what he was watching. This was his master? He had just defeated a Sith Lord all by himself, and here was his master getting humiliated? No, he told himself, this just wasn't right. As he looked at Maul screaming in horror, the two made eye contact.
Apprentice, help me. Don't just stand there.
Anakin retracted his lightsaber. He started to remember Maul's words that he said to him over 13 years ago when he first became his apprentice.
What does it say about them that they couldn't protect you?
Now fast forwarding years later, Maul was the one who couldn't even protect himself. For years, Anakin had always seen him as one of the most powerful Force users in this galaxy, but now he was watching him be humiliated by somebody way more powerful than him. Anakin didn't even think this was possible. Sidious then force pulled Maul, and as he lifted him in the air, he looked at Anakin.
I offer you a choice, young Skywalker. Strike your master down and join me. Allow me to complete your training as a Sith, and I will show you power beyond your imagination.
Anakin looked at Sidious, then looked down at Maul.
Kill him! Kill him now!
As Anakin looked at his master, he remembered the night his mother died, and that if it wasn't for him, he would have been able to save her. All of this was his fault. He then looked back up at Sidious.
Do it!
Anakin then ignited his red lightsaber, and as he walked towards Maul, he pointed his saber right next to his cheek and said,
Like you said, my master, treachery is the way of the Sith.
With one swift strike of his saber, Anakin sliced Maul's head off just as he did earlier with Count Dooku. Darth Maul was dead. The only two that remained were Darth Sidious and Anakin Skywalker. As Sidious then looked at Anakin, he said,
Good. Very good. Now, kneel before me, young Skywalker.
Anakin kneeled.
You have done well. Your master was a fool. He was foolish enough to think that I would not be aware of his plan. But for these past 13 years, I have been watching him train you in secret. He was what you call predictable. Him nor Count Dooku were ever destined to be my apprentice. But you were, ever since your birth, Chosen One. The Jedi are defeated. Your master is dead. And now, this empire will be ours.
I pledge myself to your teachings, my master.
Good. Very good. A powerful Sith you will become. Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader.